excited to be here today to talk about authenticity in practice. And to kick off the conversation, I want to define those two things because you may have heard a variety of different definitions of authenticity. If you look it up online, most of the online dictionaries have multiple definitions of authenticity. So sometimes it might feel a little bit complicated to come up with a definition that works for you. What I would recommend after what you've heard this morning and after what you hear today, that one of the takeaway activities that you take home with you is, what does authenticity mean to you? And what is your definition of it? We are going to work for the sake of this session with my definition of authenticity, which you are free to steal if you like it. And if you hate it, don't steal it. Come up with your own definition of it. My definition of authenticity is doing or saying what you would do or say when you would do or say it. So I want to break that down into a couple of different things that make it complicated to understand authenticity from a global perspective. So the first piece of that is what you would do and what you would say. What you would do and what you would say are different than what I would do and what I would say. And so when we look at some of the advice that you might have experienced on the internet historically, there are a lot of things, let's use social media as an example, where people will tell you the types of things you should post. You should post this percentage of educational content, and you should post this percentage of personal content, and you should post this percentage of whatever else people are telling you nowadays. And you should do 50% video, and you should do 20% written. And I mean, we could spend this entire session giving examples of what other people have told you to do in your life, not just on social media. The challenge with that is it is not based in what you would do. It is based on what someone else would do. And that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't work. That I like to think that these people are giving advice because it's something that has worked for them. So they're not out there innately trying to give bad advice. The additional layer to that is the question: what would you do that? Would you post that type of content that often? Is it fun for you? Is it hard for you? Why do we keep thinking we have to do these things? So that's the first piece. What would you do? What would you say? The second piece is the when component. So this always makes me think about, remember those times, I think it was like mostly on Facebook. I don't think it really became pervasive on LinkedIn, but when everyone was posting pictures of their food, everyone was posting pictures of their food, and it was like the in thing to do on social media. And so a lot of people did that. I think there was probably even an algorithmic thing that was happening at the time. Right now on LinkedIn, there's an algorithmic thing that's happening with pictures of yourself. Right? They're trying to promote a personal connection by prioritizing the usage of photos. I have a client myself who said, like, I do not feel comfortable with that. I don't want to post pictures of myself on social media all the time. Great. And this is about you deciding when you want to share something, when you want to share a picture, when you want to change your image, when you want to say a specific thing, when you want to take a stand, when you don't want to take a stand. One of my favorite examples of this, personal example, is in 2020 during COVID, my high school basketball coach passed away. And I knew I wanted to say something about it. I wanted to honor him somehow. But my emotions were in the way of me being able to come up with something that I felt good distributing. It took me about a month to come up with something that I felt really good about, that I felt like I wanted to post, and I was ready at that time to do that. And when I did that, two things happened. One, I felt healed. So to some degree, it was part of my healing process, which isn't a right or wrong thing, but that was what I needed to do and when I needed to do it. And the amazing thing, I didn't know his wife. His wife reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, what you wrote was so beautiful. Will you come and speak at his celebration of life? And I was very honored to do that. And I totally cried during that speech, but that's a different story for a different time. That was when I was ready to talk about it. And it doesn't matter if it's something that is grief related or it's something that is business related, whatever it is, you get to decide when. And you using that power to decide when is part of the practice of authenticity. Now, the last piece is actually the first part of the definition, which is doing or saying. A lot of times we get caught up in the expectation that we should do or say something. These expectations come from outside of us, and we've been practicing them since we were very small children. Our parents expect us to behave a specific way. Society expects us to behave a certain way. LinkedIn expects us to to show up a certain way. And it's eventually all of these layers confuse us to understand what would we actually say? What would we actually do? And when you get those moments, people call them your gut, right? When you feel something in your gut, you might call it intuition. These are the things that you would naturally do or say. And so something that is important to consider in that is, if we're peeling away all these layers of what other people have told us we should do and say over the years to get to the core of what we would do or say, probably going to experience sometimes where we say things we wouldn't say or we do things we wouldn't do. And not because we intentionally think I would never do that, so I'm going to show up and do that, but when I think, oh, I might do that. And then you do it and you try it and you're like, oh no, that is not something I would do. This is the practice. The practice is in the experimenting with the things and learning, what wouldn't you do? What wouldn't you say? Because most of us have a much greater library of what we wouldn't do and what we wouldn't say than what we would do and what we would say. And without going through the practice of that, we don't get to the answer. I want to take a second to go to a comment that Leslie had in the chat here about, I do not take action when I'm confused. This is a great example, Leslie, because this might not be true for everybody. There might be people who are like, oh, when I'm confused, I need to ask a question, and then and they would consider that an action. And this is why the definition of this for yourself is so powerful, because this decision is not innately on a human level right or wrong, yet it is right for Leslie, and it might be wrong for someone else. And so these are the types of things we are going to get to chat about today, which I'm very excited to do, and based on this definition of authenticity. One other thing I want to talk about is practice. So a lot of times when it comes to things about authenticity, we think this is about being, right? This is about us just being ourselves. If it was that easy, more people would probably be doing it. Except, as I mentioned, there are all of these layers of other people's expectations that have convinced us for a very long time that that's how we should be. And therefore, we create our own identity around that. And so the practice, just like I grew up playing basketball, so I use many basketball references. So apologies to those of you who don't understand the game. There is a shot in basketball called a free throw. It's time is stopped. You get to go to the free throw line and you shoot for free points. When you are training to play basketball, you shoot free throws a lot. You shoot. And you shoot. My coach in particular made us shoot 10 in a row at the end of every practice before we could go home. Why did he do that? Not because he was some kind of insane basketball Nazi, but that he knew that the practice is what builds the skill. The more times we shoot, the more times we are likely to make that shot in a game. And so, just like anybody who's training in any kind of sport who practices certain shots or defensive moves or tennis strokes or what have you, that practice is what builds the skill. authenticity is more than a way of being. Authenticity is a skill. It is a skill that needs to be practiced in order for you to become skillful at it. So if you're at a point in your experience with authenticity where you're like, oh man, I don't even know. One, I don't know what it means to me. Two, I don't know how to do that. I find myself doing things I wouldn't do. It's just there are things that you haven't practiced yet. And this is what we are going to do today, folks. We are going to practice our authenticity. So, before we go into our springboard question, I want you to take a look around your room very quickly. Just quick glance around whatever room you're in. I know some people are in their offices, some people are in different rooms in their house. I want you to look and I want you to spot something that's meaningful for you in the room. It might be my pink headphones are something that is very meaningful to me. I also have a picture of a fire that is on my wall, which to me speaks about lighting things up and ignition and all of these types of things. Very meaningful to me. Actually, I painted it myself, so it is also an original. There are things in your room that speak to who you are. There's things you have chosen that are because you are you and you like what you like. I usually use mugs as a great example. So I have my Explore mug with me today because we're here to explore. I have a pink water bottle. That's great. I love the color pink. I have books all around me. I have a whole bunch. I've actually curated my office to be full of all of my favorite things. I have Lego. I have nerd memorabilia, all of the stuff. The point is there's something that you chose because you like it. And if you didn't like it, you wouldn't have chosen it. Because you know that when it comes to a mug or headphones or the art on your wall or the books in your cabinet, it doesn't matter what someone else thinks. It only matters what you think. Do you care if I don't care if someone doesn't like my mug. This is our beginning part of our authenticity in practice, is that you have already used the skill. You have used the skill with little things that you think are irrelevant to the rest of the world. And what we can do with our practice today is tap into that beginning skill so that we can move into making those types of decisions on bigger things.